Grace and peace, you guys. Welcome back to Unshakable with April Chapman, where we discuss all things social, cultural, political, and theological from a biblical perspective. On today's podcast, you guys, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry that I did not do a show on Juneteenth. I was too busy already basking and functioning in my freedom, and I didn't need a made-up holiday that Joe Biden gave the blacks to remind myself that God made me free. But anyway, today's video, we need to talk about the pavement ape activity that took place in Columbia, South Carolina over the weekend at a Juneteenth celebration, which is reminiscent of actual Democrat behavior. Let me explain. So, as you know, Jim Clyburn is the congressional overseer of South Carolina's 6th congressional district. You know, that's the special little black district that the Democrats have carved out for themselves within a whole state, a red state. They've carved out their own little Democratic enclave where they corral and collate all of the blacks and keep them together so that Jim Clyburn can maintain his power in perpetuity. Keep in mind that that district is not really about the fact that it's Democrat. That district is important because it is black Democrat. And as you know, Democrats love oppression, subjugation, division, and chaos. And so the reason why I'm bringing up Jim Clyburn is because the melee that took place in Columbia, South Carolina on Juneteenth happened to be firmly in Jim Clyburn's congressional district. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you a clip of the fight that happened at Finley Park in South Carolina. Then we're going to come back and we're going to engage with it. And I'm going to make the connection between the Jerome Crow political politics of Jim Clyburn, and I'm going to use it to explain what you are about to see here. So let's take a look.
Announcing a new permanent unaccompanied minors policy curfew late last night after multiple fights broke out at a Juneteenth celebration, causing the event to end early. Now, the city closed Finley Park Saturday around 7 p.m. because of several fights involving juveniles. Several officers responded in reference to the fights you see on your screen here. Deputy Chief Melron Kelly telling us the fights involved mostly juveniles. Now, one adult has been taken into custody. CPD says there are no injuries being reported at this time and no shots were fired. The incident remains under investigation, but Chief Skip Holbrook shared more about the incident at last night's briefing. Take a listen.
Tonight around 7 o'clock during the Juneteenth event, main concert was getting ready to start and several fights broke out. Our officers immediately responded to a number of locations within the park, but the disruption kind of took on a life of its own, and out of an abundance of caution, we made the decision to evacuate the park.
Entered a temporary policy requiring anyone under the age of 18 to be accompanied by a parent, legal guardian, or adult over 21 after 5 p.m. at Finley Park back in May. Now, under the policy, now permanent park staff, security, and law enforcement can request ID, deny entry, or even remove violators. Officials say the move came after receiving intelligence reports about possible, quote, teen takeovers, end quote, at several events. Under the policy, park staff, security, and law enforcement have the right again to intervene and potentially remove any violators. City leaders say similar incidents have created public safety concerns in communities across the country, and they're making the policy permanent. As we learn more about this, we'll bring those updates on air and online.
All right. So I wanted to demonstrate and kind of explain to you guys what we're watching here. So as the news report outlined, it was Juneteenth celebration at what I've learned is an $8 million park. Now, Jim Clyburn does a lot of things. Sometimes, you know, We know that he's involved in Jerome Crow politics, but he did bring some money back to his district to build an $8 million park. Of all the things that Black folks need in District 6 of Columbia, South Carolina, you know, a park, not saying it's good or bad. It's kind of one of those benign things, but law and order, school choice, economic development, attracting industry. There's so many other things I believe could have been done with that money, but let's just focus on the park. So it's Juneteenth, a celebration of which Black folks overwhelmingly around this country, we're not celebrating until Joe Biden told you to celebrate it. Everybody wants to, have these celebrations. Now, I'm told that this celebration of Juneteenth has been going on for maybe 10 years in Columbia, South Carolina. That might be true. I don't know. My husband's from Columbia. We ain't never heard about it, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't happening. But the YNs, okay, who don't strike me as individuals who are American patriots or who care about freedom or liberty at all, decided to congregate at this park and get into something. Now, in a previous video, you guys may have remembered when I told you, I tell my sons, if you see, like, it's 98 degrees outside and you see a young Black scholar, he's dressed in a hoodie and his pants are sagging and his whole behind is hanging out, and his hair is unkempt, shoes untied, like he just looked like he's up to no good. It's probably because that is probably true. Well, I don't know if you were paying attention to the optics of the YNs who were engaged in the melee brawl, but I wasn't wrong because several of the assailants had on a hoodie. I saw underwear, somebody's booty was hanging out during this fight, and they had the infamous, Medusa hairstyle that some of, the YNs typically wear these days. Pattern recognition, okay?
Before the American Revolution, our founding fathers considered themselves slaves of the empire. And then Thomas Jefferson read John Locke. And he said that our freedom was not given us by the king. It was an unalienable right given us by God. It is irrevocable, non-transferable, and unsellable. The founders understood that, and this is why, at the end of the Declaration of Independence, they put, we pledge our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. They said they would die before they'd be slaves. I won't just die before I be a slave, I'll kill before I be one. So all y'all out there to say you have no choice, what the founders showed you. It was Patrick Henry that said, give me liberty, or give me death. And on that fateful night when George Washington had to cross the Delaware River in the ice and the snow, or the American Revolution would be lost, they said, General, what are the passwords? He said, victory or death. Either we're successful tonight or we all die. That's the idea of a free man. And I am a free man. So all you out there that believes that someone has to give you your freedom, you're admitting that you're a slave. If you come try to take my freedom away, God has given me the right to defend myself. And I got two things that'll get you off of me. That is Jesus and my 38. Slaves is a choice.
So here's what I'd like to say about the situation, and I'm going to tie it into Jim Clyburn and his Jerome Crow political system. What you just witnessed and what we've been witnessing within a certain subset of the Black community is nothing more than Jerome Crow politics, and you're watching the Blacks who basically have now embodied the very behavior and spirit of their oppressive Democrat ancestors. Their masters, they're just like their former masters. They've adopted the same oppressive, bullying type tactics, the rebellion, right? If you knew anything about history during the time, the Democrats were always the party of rebellion. They've always been the party of secession, meaning they don't want to be part of the union and form, a more perfect union. They wanted their slaves and they wanted, their field labor for their cotton. They weren't interested in elevating to a higher moral or social order. They wanted to subjugate blacks for the purposes of exploiting them for their own selfish gain. And now we're seeing some of the behavior that we witnessed from the Confederate Democrats of yesteryear. Many in the black community are just like their former masters. They are rebellious, right? They are violent. Okay, keep in mind the KKK was the paramilitary arm of the Democrat Party. So that's the violent faction of individuals who, by hook or by crook, were going to make you bow the knee to do what they said, and they didn't care if they used violence to do it. And what are we seeing in terms of behavior coming from the YNs in the black community? They're just like their masters. They're violent. They're rebellious. Like they just start the fight for the sake of starting the fight. We can't have nice things because the pavement apes were out at the Juneteenth celebration, and instead of celebrating liberty and freedom and this amazing country that we all share, they want to fight, right? They wanted to make sure that there was as much chaos and mayhem as possible, because just like their former masters, all they do is meditate on blood. Now, when I draw this connection between the Democrats of yesteryear and these YNs, these pavement apes who were showing out at the Juneteenth celebration, hear me clearly. The reason why I'm making this connection, because the Confederates and the Democrats of yesteryear were white, and now you see these YNs, this subculture within the black community, they are black. But notice what these two groups share. They share the same source. They're of their father, the devil. And so therefore they lean into the works of the flesh, meditating on blood, violence. Their feet are swift to shed blood. And this is because it's the same spirit, that the oppressive bullying type tactics. And the reason why I want to highlight this is because I need believers, Christians, to understand, whether you are white or whether you are black, that you can no longer speak in categories of my people and then make the assumption that your people are people who happen to share your same ethnic reflection. No. If you are in Christ, if you are a believer, your people are the ones who do the will of the Father. And those people come in all ethnicities and all stripes. They are purple, black, green. We're just all precious in the sight of God because we are bound together by the Spirit of God, and we are indwelt with His Spirit. So therefore, we hate every false way. We hate wickedness, and we hate what the Lord hates, and we love what the Lord loves. But notice how the people, Democrats, right? I'm using that category. I'm talking about Democrats, and I'm talking about white ones as well as black ones. They share the same spirit, the same fallen nature that we all had before Christ. They're in Adam. But notice why is it that these blacks are mimicking the very oppressive, subjugating, chaotic tactics of their former masters when these are the people who claim that white supremacy is the problem? Like, these are the people who claim that white supremacy is the problem, and they claim that this is the behavior of how the white people used to treat them, but now they've embodied the very actions, activities, and the same spirit of their quote unquote oppressors. Why are they just like their masters? Why is it? That is the question on the table today that needs to be answered. Well, you might be asking, what does this have to do with Jim Clyburn? Like, why are you bringing Clyburn into this discussion. As far as we know, Clyburn wasn't even at the Juneteenth celebration. Clyburn wasn't even at the Juneteenth picnic. Well, I'm bringing up Clyburn because this is his district. He is the overseer and plantation manager of District 6. And so the chaos, the crime, the poverty, the lack of economic development, everything that goes on in District 6, the lack of law and order, is a reflection of the worldview that he espouses. And District 6 is functioning exactly the way Clyburn wants it to. He has to keep the people there with very limited educational opportunities. He has to ensure that there's very limited access to economic mobility, because if you have economic mobility, then that means the industries there are going to have to compete for the labor, and they're not trying to raise wages any higher than they already are because they want people government dependent. They want you to look to him to see how much EBT and how much Section 8 and how much health care, Medicaid are you bringing back to the district, because those are the things that keep you dependent and keep you voting and keeping him in power. But they're not interested in teaching you how to fish, teaching you how to be independent, teaching you to prioritize family and family order and not this chaotic foolishness here. They can't have the law enforcement actually enforce the law in order to mitigate crime, because the crime is one of the many distractions, and the way that they keep those people trapped in District 6, hopeless, and always voting for him because they believe as long as he's fighting for them, then there's always a chance that things will get better. But what you don't realize is the goal is that it's functioning as designed. He wants the dysfunction to continue. They like all of the chaos. They like the fact that there is low income and poor educational outcomes. These YNs that you saw demonstrating all of this savagery behavior is exactly what they want for District 6. And so for us to think that a Juneteenth celebration would be immune from this, you are sadly mistaken. The plantation is working and functioning as intended. And so this chaos coming out of District 6, is it Jim Clyburn's fault? We're not going to say it's his fault. What we're going to say is that what you saw and witnessed there are the implications of the Jerome Crow politics and the plantation management system that Jim Clyburn presides over. What you witnessed is just these are the outworkings and the consequences of that system functioning as designed. And so it's unfortunate that we can't have nice things, and that at the Juneteenth celebration, fights broke out, and now they have to implement a curfew that no unaccompanied minor can be out after 5 p.m. if you're under 21, because y'all ninjas don't know how to act. And it's because they've been raised by a culture that is heavily focused on sex, savagery, and secularism. They've abandoned God. They've substituted the worship of the one true God for dependence on government. And these are the outcomes that you see witnessed here at this event. And it's unfortunate, but this is why we can't have nice things. I wasn't shocked that at the vast majority of these Juneteenth gatherings, that there was going to be some YNs there that decided to act a fool. Now, I'd argue that these YNs would not act a fool if they knew that there would be consequences for their actions. But for there to be consequences for their actions, you wouldn't You can't have Democrats in power because Democrats don't believe in enforcing the law. No. Democrats believe in restorative justice. So basically, they keep slapping Taquayshawn and Jaquarius and them on the wrist, don't really hold them accountable, because the goal for Jaquarius and Taquayshawn, the goal for them is to wreak havoc and terror on their own communities and to keep them lulled to sleep and distracted enough so that you can't pay attention to everything else that's going on. And you'll never aspire for anything better because you'll believe that this is normal and this is just the way things are. So I'm curious to know, what do you guys think? Were you shocked that there was a melee at Finley Park in Columbia, South Carolina during the Junteenth celebration? Did you celebrate Juneteenth? And where you went to celebrate Juneteenth, did a fight break out? Did you have to, corral your kids up and put them in the car? Did you have to duck for cover? Like, I don't want to go anywhere where I have to prep my children if in the event something go down, you need to stop, drop, and roll and run. Like, I don't want to go anywhere where I've got to give those kinds of instructions. But I'm curious to know, are you shocked that this type of behavior came out of Congressional District 6? Where is the press conference? Have we heard from Jim Clyburn? What are his thoughts on the teen takeovers acting the fool? Will we get some stricter law enforcement? Will law and order become a mainstay in District 6, or are we going to, or should we expect more of the same? I project that we're not going to hear anything from Jim Clyburn. Jim don't care about stuff like this. He like, oh, those is just ninjas being ninjas. They just being themselves. Ain't nothing to see over there. He doesn't care. The crime and the poverty and the ignorance coming out of District 6, this is exactly what he wants. But I do want to hear from you. Leave me your thoughts down in the comments box below. And until next time, you guys, stand firm, stay bold, and above all else, stay unshakable. Grace and peace. Happy Juneteenth.